This video is for the Chapter 2, Priority Standard number 3, which is writing equations of lines. So I've listed at the top, this right here, this first equation, y equals mx plus b, is slope-intercept form. That's where we need to end all of our equations. Point-slope form is the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, and that is our point slope. Keep in mind that this y and this x will stay letters. Okay. All right. So the first problem that we have, we're given the slope is -3/4 and the y-intercept is 5. And we need to end in slope-intercept form, and we were given the slope and the intercept. Okay. Because keep in mind, m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So all we do is plug those in. So into our y equals mx plus b, we have y equals -3/4 x. So the 3/4 goes in for m, and then our y-intercept is 5, so plus 5. So we just plug in the slope and the y-intercept. Slope in for m, and the y-intercept in for b. All right, so on the next one, we are given the slope and a point. So we're going to use point-slope form, which is the second equation that we were given. And remember, the y and the x that I underlined in red stay as letters. Keep in mind that this right here is your x sub 1, and this is your y sub 1. So I'm going to have y minus my -2, and I'm going to set that equal for m. So m is a -4, so I'm going to plug that in. And then I have x minus, and then I need x sub 1, which is 6. Okay, so y minus y sub 2, so this number came from up here. Our slope is -4, that was given to us, and then our 6 right here is our x sub 1. Now remember, if you're subtracting a negative, that means you're going to add. Okay, and so we have y plus 2 over here on the left side. So we have y plus 2. Over here, I'm going to take this -4 and I'm going to distribute it. So I get -4x plus 24. And now the last step, I'm going to get y by itself so that I have it in that slope-intercept form that we need to end in. So I'm just going to go ahead and subtract 2 from both sides. So I have y equals -4x plus 22. Okay, and that is my answer right there. Okay, all right, so for the next problem, we're given 2 points. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to find the slope. So if you remember from the last lesson, we're going to take y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, and so if we want to think about it, this is x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to take -4 minus 8. So that's me subtracting my y's. So -4 minus 8. And on the bottom, I'm going to take 2 minus -2. So that's me subtracting my x's. 2 minus -2. Okay, now keep in mind on the bottom here, if we're subtracting a negative, we're adding. So on the top, I get -12. And on the bottom, I have 4, giving me a slope of -3. So that is my slope for this question here. Separate those a little bit. Okay, so now I have my slope and I just need to use one of the points. Doesn't matter which one. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one right here, and I'm going to plug that back into our point slope form. So I'm going to have y minus the y, which is -4, is equal to our slope, which is -3, times x minus our x, which is 2. And keep in mind, I could have used -2/8. It would have given me the same answer. So right here, I'm subtracting a negative, so I'm going to add, and then I'm simplifying just like I did before. So I have y plus 4 equals, and then I'm going to distribute that -3. So I have -3x plus 6, and then I need to get y by itself. So I'm going to subtract the 4 from both sides. And so I end up getting y equals -3x plus 2. And so that's my final answer for that one. Okay, so on the next problem, it tells us that it's parallel to y equals 3x plus 2 and goes through 4, 1. So parallel, we know, this means that we have the same slope. So that means that our slope is going to be 3. Okay, and so with a slope of 3, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing that we did above and plug it into point slope form. So remember, this is my x sub 1 and this is my y sub 1. So I'm going to have y minus the 1, is equal to the slope, which is 3, times x minus our x, which is 4. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and distribute the 3. So I have y minus 1 equals 3x minus 12. And then the last step that I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to add the 1 to both sides so I can get the y by itself. And so when I do that, I end up with y equals 3x minus 11. And that is my final answer. And it is parallel, we can see, because they have the same slope. The slope here is 3, and our slope there is 3. Okay, last one, we're going to go ahead and work with a line that's perpendicular. And so with perpendicular, we know that we're going to have opposite reciprocal slopes. And so our slope right here, as we can see, is negative 1/4. So to get the opposite, I'm going to make it positive, and then I'm going to flip it. So it's going to become 4/1. So I get a positive 4/1, which just we're going to write as 4. So my slope is 4. And I have my point -8, 2. So yet again, I'm going to plug it into point slope form. So I'm going to take y minus the y, which is 2, keeping in mind, right, this is x1 and y1. So y minus 2 is equal to our slope, which we found to be 4, times x minus -8. So I'm going to go ahead and add the opposite here. And then I have y minus 2 is equal to, and I'm going to distribute that 4. So I have 4x plus 32. And then just as above, the last thing I'm going to do is get my y by itself. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides, and we end up with y equals 4x plus 34. And we can see that the slopes are opposite reciprocals because this is negative 1/4, and that right there is a 4. Okay, so keep in mind for all of these, we are starting most of these in our point slope equation, which is this equation right here. So this is where we start. Okay, so that's our starting point, and then this is where we end with the last step of usually just trying to get y by itself. Okay, so that is chapter 2, priority stand number 3, writing equations of line.